Hello. Welcome back to your stable friend. Let's jump right in. Crazy week on the social media, but some interesting debates, some interesting arguments, and some interesting questions were posed. One person on a page or group asked me, well, then what do you think horses are here for? And I thought, wow, that is an amazing question, and that is absolutely worth an episode or 2 or 3 of Your Stable Friend. But before we do that, so we're looking at a part 2 for that, the same person said that they didn't feel they were compromising anything to do with their horse's welfare because their horse was bred to do the job. The horse was bred to do the job. And his horses, plural, were bred to do the job that he asked them to do. I'm not even sure what that job is. I'm assuming he had a cowboy hat on in his picture, so I'm assuming it is some sort of either a rodeo event or a working activity, roping, cow sorting, something of that nature. But that's not the only reason why we breed horses, as you very well know. Horses are bred to race, horses are bred to do dressage, horses are bred to jump. We do a lot of breeding towards an end goal. So he said to me, he said, this is what my horses were bred to do. Well, that was the first thing that I thought that deserves a completely separate conversation before we move into why, in my opinion, do horses exist on this planet, which is, again, such a great question, but there's so much to talk about in that we have to separate this into 2 different talks. So let's get down to this one. My horse was bred to do that job. What is my problem with that? Why do I have a problem with that? Well, let's look at humans. Now, anthropomorphizing is very irritating to some people. But from some reading and research that I've done, anthropomorphizing is important because it can teach people about empathy. The old saying, put your foot in my shoe, or you haven't walked, you don't know what my life is until you've walked, a few miles in my shoes, or put the shoe on the other foot. All those kinds of things are to help the human try to understand something from a different perspective, not necessarily from another human perspective, but how about just from the perspective of another sentient being? Same thing with do unto others. That old Bible phrase doesn't say do unto other human beings. I don't believe it specifically reads that way. I think it says do unto others. Others being all sorts of different beings, 2-legged, 4-legged, etc. Do unto others as you would have done to yourself. So this is how we learn about compassion and empathy, is when we do anthropomorphize and when we do put our foot in the shoes of another. So when I hear the phrase, that's what that horse was bred to do, the first thing that comes to my mind, and I've made this correlation before, is the royal family. There is a human construct where humans are actually bred to do a specific duty, to have certain responsibilities, to perform certain activities and duties that come along with the bloodline. Very much like a racehorse, very much like a roping horse, very much like a dressage horse who was bred from a dressage line. You were bred to do something. Okay, fine. You were. Actually, somebody sat down and said, we're going to breed you to do this. Even with the monarchy. Someone said, we need to have children to, keep the monarchy alive. So yes, that is true. They were bred to do something. I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is that each of us, whether we have 2 legs or 4 legs or no legs, or what our lineage is, of what species we are, each of us is a unique individual. A unique individual. A unique individual. We all are born into this world with an extremely unique map of who we are and what we want to do with our lives and how we think of ourselves. And if you do not believe that horses are sentient beings, then I understand that you're going to have a problem understanding that it's the same for them. They might see something and go, oh wow, that looks really interesting. I think I want to try that. And have the same kinds of thoughts and feelings that we have. So just because a horse was bred to do a certain job doesn't mean that that unique individual has come out of the mother's womb saying, hey, I'm ready to do that job and I'm all into it, and yeah, that's my whole mindset is about that and everything I love is about that. What if that unique individual came out, let's just go back to the monarchy. You are a male child of the monarchy and you are born a prince and you are probably going to become the king. How do you feel about that? Well, great. If something in you was like, yeah, that sounds really good to me, and yeah, I'm all on board for that. But what about so many of the people in the royal family that wanted nothing to do with being in the royal family or having those duties? They were artists, they were musicians, they were sportsmen and women. They wanted to do things like go and improve the environment or what have you. They didn't want to have to deal with the duties or the responsibility as what a monarch might have to do. And it didn't resonate with anything inside them. Let's take some of the countries that actually breed for super athletes. And I don't know if you know about this, but there are a couple of countries, probably more, that actually do incentivize high-level athletes to breed to produce super athletes. I was reading a very interesting article about it. And that is very much what I think of when I think of a horse was bred, quote unquote, to do that. What if this little girl pops out, they've already pinned it on her that she's going to be a top-level super gymnast. What if that is the furthest thing from her mind? What if that doesn't sound good to her at all? All the breeding in the world cannot take the place of what your will and your desires are. What if at some young age she sees someone doing equestrian sports and gets it in her mind that no, I don't want to do gymnastics. I want a pony. I want to have a horse. I want to be with horses. I want to do horses. But now she is pinned down to being a gymnast, and maybe a very reluctant one who's not enjoying her life at all, probably ruining her body, because every gymnast that I know says later that it ruined their body, like every ballet dancer that I know says that it ruined their body. Now you've got this person pinned into, you have to do this sport that's going to physically hurt you, and by the time you're 28, you're going to feel like you're 98, and you have to do that, and you have to enjoy it. That's what I think of when a person like that says, I'm doing with my horse what it was bred to do. Okay, again, it may have been bred to do it, and it may even like doing that job, but do you know that it enjoys doing that job? How do you know? Because if you're using bits, whips, spurs, tie downs, anything that you are chaining or putting around the nose or restricting, if you are using any tools to force a horse to do a job, I would say it probably doesn't love that job. Or you didn't give it enough time training. One of the two. Either you didn't take the time to train well and train thoroughly, or that this horse doesn't love that job. I had a horse, Speedy, who loved to jump. You never had to do anything except point him at one, and there he went. He loved it. He would free jump when he was turned out. He loved the feeling of it. Had another horse named Blue. He was one of our school horses. We got him for pennies because the man who had him, Blue, was, guess what? Bred to be a roper. He was from really nice quarter horse bloodlines, and he was bred to be a roper, and allegedly he hated it. The guy called him Blue the Reluctant Roper. And we went out to try Blue, and knowing what we were going to be asking him to do for his job at our place, I asked the guy, does he jump? And the guy said, he does. I saw him jump for the very first time just a few days ago when a lady came down to try him. I'm like, okay, well, great. Then I don't feel completely unsafe and crazy trying to put him over a jump. I said, what have you got to set up a jump? He said, we don't have anything. We've got some ground poles and some barrels. So I had a choice between a really high jump and a really low jump. So I started with a low jump, and Blue just picked up his feet like he was going over a ground rail. I'm like, well, that doesn't really show me about his jumping skills and talent. So I'm like, all right, set it up on the top of the barrels, which made it a pretty sizable jump for a horse that I didn't know. And it came around the corner, pointed it at it. I saw his little ears focusing on it. I just sat there and thought, let me just be completely non-invasive and let's just see what he does with it. And I just cantered him up to the jump. He picked the most beautiful spot and took the most beautiful jump. I'm like, sold. He loved to do it. He loved it. The guy said, I've never seen that expression on his face before. So here it is. His horse was bred to be a roper. His horse hated being a roper. He's a sentient being. He has a mind, he thinks about things, he has a life that he wants to enjoy like we all do. Yet he was being forced into a certain career path because he was bred to do it. This is a problem with a big part of our industry. It's a huge problem at the racetrack. Let's take my mare. She has the most regal racing bloodlines. She's got Secretariat and Native Dancer and Mr. Prospector and all kinds of amazing celebrity racehorses in her pedigree. She hated it, hated it. I think they raced her about 5 times in a couple of different states, and then that was it for her. Away she went. And she ended up in a not so good place where I found her, and we got together many, many years ago. And she's actually the one who was the harbinger of all of my change, of all of my big changes. She's the one who suggested going bitless. She's the one who suggested that nobody wears halters anymore. She's the one who suggested that we don't force anybody to do anything. She's the one who suggested that we all get to be loose on the property. These are all her ideas, and thank goodness for her, because I would have been very, very slow to my evolution if it wasn't for her. But she was bred to be a racehorse. But guess what? She did something far more important with her life. She did something far more, or is continuing to do. She's done something far more, grand with her life than just winning, a necklace of roses and a trophy and a few $1,000s. We must, as humans, as equestrians, look at our horses like unique individuals, the unique individuals that they are, and not just make assumptions for them and then base their whole life on something that they were quote unquote bred to do. It's not fair. It's just not fair. If the horse was bred to do it and the horse enjoys doing it, and you know that because you're not forcing the horse to do it, fine, that's wonderful. But if a horse was bred to do something, and like poor Blue, I mean, you're just kicking and whipping and dragging this horse around to do all these things, and this horse is not happy about it and basically just shuts down because of it, then it doesn't matter what it was bred to do. It wasn't then bred to do that. You may have thought it was bred to do that, but it wasn't, obviously. The horse was not obviously bred to do that. So this is something that you have to consider. Just because you go to Germany and buy a $300,000 dressage prospect doesn't mean that that horse didn't want to be a painter, didn't want to be a singer, didn't want to be an actress. It doesn't mean just because this horse is a sentient, thinking, feeling being with ideas and creativity and interests, and again, sees things and witnesses things and observes things and takes all of that in just like we do to create their wants and desires. And we have to remember that. And again, if you don't believe that they are a sentient being, then all of this is going to sound like a big fairy tale to you. But once you consider their sentience, Hopefully this does make sense. And in the next episode, we will talk about why I think horses are here. Again, such a big question. Why are we even here? But we'll talk about it. Thanks for listening. Hey, hit the subscribe button, please, and come back and see us again. Thank you.